Diddy's legal troubles just took another hit as his lawyer Anthony Ricco has officially stepped down. This comes after Judge Arun Subramanian ruled that the case will proceed to trial. Court documents obtained from Diddy's cell reveal that he has been attempting to contact witnesses, raising serious concerns. Now, with even his legal team abandoning him, is this the final downfall for Diddy? Could he really be facing a lifetime behind bars?
He's doing fine. It's a difficult circumstance. He's making the best of the situation.
A situation one of Diddy's attorneys won't be part of moving forward. Anthony Ricco announcing in court docs, under no circumstances can he continue defending the embattled rapper.
This is a serious proceeding with serious consequences, and all of us are addressing it accordingly.
In a motion filed on Thursday, Ricco stopped short of revealing why he's stepping down from Diddy's legal team, just months ahead of the music mogul's scheduled trial date in May for sex trafficking and racketeering charges, all of which Diddy's denied.
Dr. King called it the law of unintended consequences. So sometimes the more you push a person down, the stronger they get.
That's Ricco speaking up late last year for his now former client. ET's learned the attorney's exit will not affect Diddy's other attorneys, nor their defense strategy.
I told Mr. Combs I'm going to try and get his case to trial as quickly as possible. He has been ready to defend this case since he first found out about this case. Nothing has changed from his perspective.
You're going to hear about my party. They're going to be shutting them down. They're going to probably be arresting me.
After Diddy was arrested, Ricco said he provided a high level of legal representation, but now, for reasons unknown, he can under no circumstances effectively serve in the upcoming trial.
Nobody's okay with staying in jail for now.
And high-profile death penalty attorney Anthony Ricco. Now, while the pair joined around the same time, Anthony in a court filing on Friday said he's leaving the case. In the filing, Anthony Ricco said, quote, "For the reasons set forth below, this motion for withdrawals is filed so that Sean Combs may move forward with his defense and to commence jury selection and trial without any delay. As a result of discussion with lead counsel Mark Agnifilo, this motion for withdrawal of counsel is filed. While I am aware that the local rule requires an application for withdrawal of counsel is supported and granted, there are sufficient reasons related to protections afforded by the attorney-client privilege for brevity in my application for withdrawal as counsel in this case. Although I have provided Sean Combs with the high level of legal representation expected by the court, under no circumstances can I continue to effectively serve as counsel for Sean Combs," end quote. Now, essentially in legalese, I quit, but I can't go into details because of attorney-client privilege. According to the filing, though, the defense shakeup won't delay the case. Diddy will continue with 5 attorneys. That's Mark Agnifilo, Tinny Garagos, Alexandra Shapiro, Jason A. Driscoll, and Anna Esteval. Now, a judge still has to sign off on the motion, but with the government taking no position on it and the fact Anthony Ricco spoke with Mark Agnifilo about it before filing the motion, a judge will likely sign off on it.
Anthony Ricco, a top death penalty attorney on Diddy's legal team, has just filed a motion to withdraw from the case. In his letter to the judge, Ricco stated that his decision followed discussions with Diddy's lead counsel, Mark Agnifilo. However, he did not provide a specific reason for stepping down, citing attorney-client privilege as the barrier to revealing the full truth. Meanwhile, federal prosecutor Niyama Ramani has weighed in on the situation. Here's what he had to say.
With all that being said, kind of going back to what potentially the reasoning might be, do you think that it might have been a personal conflict between Diddy and Anthony Ricco, or do you think it might have been Anthony Ricco with other counsel? But what do you make of all of that?
Potentially, it could be a conflict with a client, right? A disagreement. They just don't get along. The communication is poor. They don't agree on defense strategy. It could be a conflict with one of the other lawyers. Obviously, it seems like Agnifilo is the lead on this case, although Ricco was certainly his 1B. And I know obviously there's other lawyers on the case. Obviously, a lot of the victims are female. They're going to want female lawyers on the defense team, especially during some of the aggressive cross-examination. That tends to be the conventional wisdom when you're dealing with victims who are alleged victims of sexual assault or abuse. And then it could be a conflict with one of the victims themselves. Maybe maybe Ricco consulted with them or even represented them in such a way that he has to get off the case. So it could be any number of potential conflicts.
Anthony Rico, the only black attorney on Diddy's legal team, has withdrawn from the case just after Diddy's defense claimed the charges against him were racially motivated. This raises questions: was his departure connected to this legal strategy? However, former federal prosecutors argue that this defense is unlikely to hold up in court, as Diddy's alleged victims come from diverse racial backgrounds.
I think it has to be the defense, the consent, because look, sometimes you can argue that the sexual activity never happened, right? It wasn't me, defense. But this is not your typical sexual assault case. There are a lot of people there, right? There are people that are arranging the sex workers. There are people that are setting up lights and cameras, booking hotel rooms. Obviously, Diddy has a large entourage. So there's a lot of witnesses there, and a lot of this was allegedly recorded. So I think it's going to be very difficult to argue that it wasn't me. So you have to argue that it was consensual. And we've talked about the line that separates sex trafficking from consensual sex. It's that force, fraud, or coercion. So I fully expect the defense to be, this was all consensual. These are all people who are trying to shake Diddy down for money. This is all extortion. That's why they're pursuing these claims. They're just piling on. But really, this is regret, not rape. And I think that's the defense strategy in this case.
Sean Combs asked the judge in his federal case to throw out one of the charges. He says he's being targeted because he's a black man and the charge is rooted in racism. I look at Combs' argument and his chances of success. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Sean Diddy Combs wants one of the counts in his federal superseding indictment thrown out. Combs argues he's basically being singled out by federal prosecutors because of his race and his success in business.
Diddy's defense seems to be gearing up toward his alleged criminal conduct wasn't criminal. It was his personal business of what was going on in his bedrooms or hotels or wherever the freak-offs occurred. So they're saying that count 3 wasn't transportation to engage in prostitution, but was just him using escorts, male escorts at that, to bring in as a third with his girlfriends. Whereas the government's theory of the case is Diddy used force, fraud, and coercion to make his alleged victims have sex against their will in his freak-offs that he recorded for his own pleasure. Now, Diddy pleaded not guilty to all his charges, hence why the case is going to trial.
Diddy's luck has officially run out, and so are his lawyers. Judge Aaron Subban has ruled that the raid on Diddy's cell did not violate his rights, shutting down his legal team's attempt to get the case dismissed. Diddy's attorneys argued that he was being illegally targeted and that this warranted a mistrial, but the judge found no evidence to support those claims. Meanwhile, newly obtained notes and recorded calls from the MDC reveal that Diddy was in contact with witnesses, allegedly attempting to threaten them. With the case moving forward, things are looking worse than ever for him.
Basically, the idea was that this was a pretext to search Sean Combs' unit. But the idea here is there was a raid to search for contraband. This is a detention center that has been plagued with violence and drugs and weapons. Okay, so this raid, this sweep, it happens. And this investigator, Investigator 1, apparently took photos of 19 pages of Sean Combs' notes and sent them to a filter team. Now, a filter team is supposed to be an independent, third-party team not connected to the prosecutors that are involved in Combs' actual criminal case. They go through the documents and they make sure there's not anything in there that's attorney-client or work product privilege, okay? So the order continues from Judge Subramanian. In November, the government included some of what it received from the filter team in its opposition to Combs' bail application, and Combs objected, arguing that those notes contained privileged information and were obtained in violation of Combs' constitutional rights. The court held an emergency hearing at which the government indicated that it would not rely on the notes in opposing the bail application. The court ordered the case team to get rid of the notes in its possession, which it did. Combs should be denied bail. Why? Because they seem to indicate that those notes suggest Combs was improperly contacting and paying off a witness in the case. Yeah, they say this will show it. But yes, Judge Subramanian, in the end, ordered that those 19 pages be destroyed and that the government did not and could not use those notes in their argument for bail, but for Sean Combs it didn't matter. He was denied bail nonetheless. So according to the government, a person referred to as Investigator 1 had apparently been monitoring Sean Combs' phone calls and other communications. That's one of the ways that officials learned that Combs was allegedly breaking the jail rules by reportedly doing things like using other inmates' ID numbers or initiating three-way phone calls to potentially contact somebody he wasn't supposed to. But the defense has raised alarm bells when they say that this investigator improperly took photos of privileged notes in Combs' cell and then gave that information to the prosecution, despite the fact that the defense claims the word legal was written on the notepads, meaning there's attorney-client privilege issue.
Returning to the case, prosecutors have filed a superseding indictment, revealing that there are more victims than initially believed. The alleged duration of Diddy's crimes has now been extended by 4 years, with 2 additional victims coming forward. While the indictment does not disclose their identities, the evidence presented so far gives us a strong idea of who they might be.
Basically means that the previous charges have been updated and the government have added new details to the case. They've expanded either the charges against someone, which isn't what's happened here, or they have added new detail about the alleged crimes, which is what is happening in this particular case.
So what's new, what's different in this superseding indictment?
There are no new charges against Diddy. Like you said, he's still accused of sex trafficking, of racketeering and transportation for the purposes of prosecution. But what the prosecutors have done is expanded the case with more details. They've added 2 new female victims, and they've also said that the alleged crimes took place over a longer time frame than they'd initially said. It now runs from 2004 to 2024, whereas before it had just been a 16-year time span.
And you mentioned there about adding new victims. That's victim 2 and victim 3 referred to in this indictment, but we already had a victim. We had victim 1. They're still in it?
Yes, that's right. So victim 1 is the case that they built the federal prosecution on.
And they say about these 3 victims, Combs and other members and associates of the Combs enterprise wielded the power of the Combs global enterprise to intimidate, threaten and lure female victims into Combs' orbit, often under the pretense of a romantic relationship. Combs then used force, threats of force and coercion to cause victims, including but not limited to 3 female victims, 1, 2 and 3, to engage in commercial sex acts. In connection with the commercial sex acts, Combs provided the victims with, among other things, monetary payments, career opportunities and payments of rent and housing expenses.
Many of the allegations in the new indictment closely align with claims made by Diddy's former executive assistant, Philip Hines, in a recent docuseries. Hines is shaping up to be a key witness for the prosecution, offering more than just testimony. There's also photographic evidence and text conversations backing up his statements. He alleges that Diddy forced him to participate in sex acts as a test of loyalty and even made him refer to him as the king.
A former assistant to Sean Diddy Combs speaking out in the new interview with new allegations about wild parties and drug use. Eva Pilgrim is here with the story. Good morning, Eva.
Good morning, Michael. At this point, we've all probably heard about these infamous parties. Diddy's assistant now giving us details about what he says were called Wild King Nights.
This morning, new details allegedly inside Diddy's world before his shocking arrest. The entertainment mogul now behind bars for federal sex trafficking and racketeering charges.
It was a circus. He did whatever he wanted, and we were just at his disposal.
Phil Hines was Diddy's senior executive assistant from 2019 to 2021. He says his then boss asked him to purchase supplies for parties dubbed Wild King Nights.
We usually had a laundry list of items that included lights, alcohol, marijuana, ketamine. Those requests started to become more frequent.
Hines claims many of these parties involved younger women.
A lot of times you'd have him with a younger female. There's a power dynamic there. A more impressionable girl is easier to reel in. Consent is between the people that are engaging, and I wasn't there in these situations to understand the consent.
Yes. One of the things is, the thing that stuck out to me, you mentioned it before, these allegations are so consistent with what the allegations are that are laid out by prosecutors when they describe the freak-offs in their indictment, right? These sex-fueled parties, these drug-fueled parties, the baby oil, the Astroglide, and it makes me wonder, A, do you think Mr. Pines is a cooperating witness for the government? B, if so, do you think he was one of the people that they originally spoke to when they were coming up with this, when they were drafting the indictment and coming up with the charges? Or do you think he's come out after? Because again, I think the timing of the lawsuit's important too, at the end of the year, right now. Talk to me about what you think his role might be.
If I had to guess, I would figure that the feds already talked to him, just because I know from my experience dealing with them how all-encompassing their investigations are. And if he really was his executive assistant from the time frame that they allege in the lawsuit, I can't see a scenario where they wouldn't. I mean, they investigate regular cases to the point that that I'm shocked when I see it as a criminal defense attorney with regular people. When you're talking about a high-profile celebrity case like this, I can't fathom that no one spoke to this individual prior to this. So I would think that they did speak to him, and I can't imagine that he's not a witness, because the way that they work is they want everybody that can corroborate their theory of the case to be on their witness list, or to be somebody that they could call. And I can't think that if he actually was his assistant for this time frame, he would be an excellent witness.
Diddy is in full panic mode after Philip Pines spoke out against him. In response, he has filed a $100 million lawsuit against NBC, claiming that Pines is spreading false accusations to damage his reputation. Diddy insists that none of Pines' allegations are true and is now fighting back in court.
Sean Diddy Combs sues NBC for $100 million over its Peacock documentary about him. According to docs obtained by E! News February 12th, the Bad Boy Records founder filed a lawsuit against NBC Universal seeking $100 million after Peacock, the streaming service owned by the media company, released the documentary Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy. In the filing, Combs, who is currently in jail on sex trafficking and racketeering charges, accuses NBC Universal of defamation and alleged that the company maliciously and recklessly broadcast the documentary, which included claims that the rapper committed crimes like serial murder and sexual assault of minors without having a shred of evidence. The filing reads, "In making and broadcasting these falsehoods, among others, defendants seek only to capitalize on the public's appetite for scandal without any regard for the truth and at the expense of Mr. Combs' right to a fair trial."
The $100 million Diddy is suing for is an interesting figure, especially since he recently lost a case for the same amount. Alleged victim Cardella Smith sued Diddy, claiming he was raped by the music mogul in 1997 during a party at a Holiday Inn in Detroit, where Smith was working as a bartender. A court ordered Diddy to pay $100 million in damages, a decision he is currently appealing.
New at 5, the legal troubles continue for Sean Diddy Combs tonight after a judge ordered the music mogul to pay $100 million to a Michigan man who says that he was sexually assaulted by Combs in '97.
According to court documents, Derek Cardello Smith says Combs drugged and then assaulted him during an after party at a Holiday Inn in Detroit. But Combs never responded to the lawsuit in court. On Monday, the judge ordered him to pay $10 million each month starting in October. The victim is currently behind bars serving a 75-year prison sentence for criminal sexual conduct and kidnapping.
The KK empire is crumbling, and those closest to him are starting to turn their backs. His chief of staff, Christina Coram, often referred to as his manipulator-in-chief, is alleged to have orchestrated many of the illegal activities tied to him. Coram was named in Lil Rod's lawsuit, and online sources claim she is now preparing to turn on Diddy. If she decides to speak out, it could seal his fate, potentially ensuring he never sees the light of day again.
More people are spotlighting this woman right here. This one right here has been called his, I can't read the name. Sorry, I can't say certain keywords, but hopefully you understand why. I'm doing my best. Doing my best, chat. But Sean Diddy Combs once called his Combs Enterprise Chief of Staff, Christina Coram, his right hand. It's a Coram? It's Coram. Source close to the federal investigation believes she is more his manipulator-in-chief. If anybody is a gatekeeper, Christina would know everything, the source added. High-ranking supervisors were flagged in the 3-court federal indictment, charging Combs with all the things we've said. Combs has pleaded not guilty to the charge, but remains in custody. He's now offering a $500 million bail, which was rejected. We'll see if he gets this appeal today. Coram has not been arrested or charged with any case. So does that mean she's working with the feds? Because if his right-hand man is actually sharing the secrets, well, he's even more in trouble, right? That's the done deal.
Desiree Smith, Tupac's former girlfriend, is also coming forward with shocking claims about what she witnessed during her time with him. She alleges that she knows a woman who was secretly videotaped while being assaulted by Diddy. According to Desiree, the woman accidentally walked in on Diddy in a sexual encounter with another man, and as retaliation, he allegedly raped her and threatened her with harm if she ever spoke out.
I know a lot of people that know him. I met one of his old security guards, and I've been to the tea about him. Weird shit, liking strap-ons. I met this girl one time that did a photo shoot for him. It's a nice young lady from Canada, and me and her ended up going on vacation together, and a few months later, and she told me something that she saw go down at his house in the Hamptons. And then a few months later, she told me that she went hanging out with like his bodyguard and his entourage, and somebody drugged her and she doesn't know what happened. So none of this is alarming. And then she went back to Canada. So.
And how long ago was this? Was this in the 90s?
This was in the 2000s. Maybe like around 2004, 2006, somewhere around there. He's been doing
All of the tapes recorded by Diddy are set to be played in open court before the grand jury, and they could spell the end of his career. No legal argument he presents will hold up once the jury sees the footage, which allegedly includes the abuse of minors. So far, 8 of these tapes have already been handed over to the FBI, while hundreds more are reportedly being sold on the dark web.
The trial starts and the jury sits. Will they be shown these tapes?
100%.
Will they have to watch it in court? Like during
100% in court in front of a room of people. And so that's the other thing that's awful. They are going to be watching basically for hours on end in front of people. So in front of victim one, whoever it may be, there's going to be porn played in the federal courtroom.
And victim one would have been made aware of this.
Oh, 100%. She's probably being told right now, like, this is going to be played in open court. Your sex history, your sex life is going to be talked about in open court. All of this.
And presumably then she knows that and she's pushing forward because she hasn't withdrawn.
But don't forget this. It doesn't matter if she does or she doesn't. This isn't the civil case. This is the criminal case. So she could flat out tell the federal government, I don't want to participate. And they can say, we don't care. This is a crime. Crimes are against the United States, not against them. Keep calling her victim one, but don't forget, she's a witness to a crime. So it doesn't matter if she went to them in today and said, I'm not participating. Their response, we don't care. Get you on the stand.
So far, more than 40 lawsuits have been filed against Sean Diddy Combs, and the latest one may be the most damaging yet. 2 men have come forward, suing Diddy for rape, alongside a married woman who alleges that he drugged her and attempted to assault her. The woman, filing anonymously, is just one of many, part of what appears to be a growing wave of accusers seeking justice against the music mogul.
She said she refused repeatedly and reminded him she's married. But according to the complaint, Diddy became visibly angry at her resisting and tried to remove her clothes himself, despite her objecting. Now remember how I mentioned she texted her husband his address she saw from the mail in his car? Well, she told Diddy she texted her husband the address. And while she says Diddy took a beat, it was only temporarily. He then kept groping her and attempting to initiate sexual acts. She claims for 4 hours, Diddy subjected her to continuous unwanted touching and groping of her breasts in privates, and even went further. Now, according to the court filing, eventually whatever drug she believed she ingested began to wear off, and then she regained enough strength to insist on leaving Diddy's home and demand he call her a cab. While she still felt the effects of the substance, Jane Doe says she left his home emotionally shaken and physically impaired, as well as shocked by what had happened. Now, Diddy's attorneys denied the allegations, saying no matter how many lawsuits are filed, especially by individuals who refuse to put their own names behind their claims, it won't change the fact that Mr. Combs has never sexually assaulted or sex trafficked anyone, man or woman, adult or minor. We live in a world where anyone can file a lawsuit for any reason. Fortunately, a fair and impartial judicial process exists to find the truth, and Mr. Combs is confident he will prevail in court.
Last Friday evening, Tony Busby filed to dismiss this lawsuit with prejudice. Dismissing a lawsuit with prejudice means it will not, and more importantly, it means it cannot be refiled. Jay-Z said in a statement, "Today is a victory. The frivolous, fictitious, and appalling allegations have been dismissed. This civil suit was without merit and never going anywhere. The fictional tale they created was laughable, if not for the seriousness of the claims. I would not wish this experience on anyone. The trauma that my wife, my children, loved ones, and I have endured can never be dismissed. This 1-800 lawyer gets to file a suit hiding behind Jane Doe, and when they quickly realize that the money grab is going to fail, they get to walk away with no repercussions. The system has failed." Sean Combs also had something to say about Busby dismissing the suit. Today's complete dismissal without a settlement by the 1-800 attorney is yet another confirmation that these lawsuits are built on falsehoods, not facts. For months, we have seen case after case filed by individuals hiding behind anonymity, pushed forward by an attorney more focused on media headlines than legal merit. Just like this claim, the others will fall apart because there is no truth to them.
Additionally, a case alleging Sean Diddy's involvement with a notorious sex trafficker is being considered. Diddy Combs was allegedly working with a sex trafficker to source minors for his illegal business, according to the lawsuit. One of the victims claims that Diddy contacted her handler and sent her and other minors to Diddy's party. The victim also describes how Diddy made her red, but she witnessed Diddy having an affair with a 12-year-old minor on the bed next to her.
Busby is making sure, again, he's representing her, making sure that the court knows just how horrific these allegations are, because it reads, quote, "Defendant Sean Combs paid a number of sex traffickers to provide underage girls, including plaintiff, to be used for the sexual gratification of himself and his friends at a party in Miami. Defendant Combs' arranging of these girls for sex led to plaintiff suffering approximately 20 separate instances of sexual assault at the party. This case seeks compensatory and punitive damages on behalf of this young victim of sex trafficking." Compensatory damages are those that can restore a plaintiff try to do so. Punitive damages are a way to punish the defendant or defendants for really bad, egregious behavior. Now, it's interesting that an alleged sex trafficking victim is coming forward, as Combs faces himself federal sex trafficking allegations, criminal charges for allegedly forcing people to participate in sex acts with commercial sex workers for his own gratification.
The allegations against Diddy, especially those involving minors, have put him in a dangerous position behind bars. In prison, those accused of such crimes often face severe consequences from other inmates. This is why Diddy is doing everything he can to secure his release. Meanwhile, inmates at the MDC are reportedly waiting for him to be transferred to the general population, where tensions could escalate.
So this jail's conditions, have been described as dirty, notorious for mice, maggots, inmate violence, power outages. You spent 10 years in 11 different facilities, so you know what life is like for him right now. Take us behind the scenes.
I was also at MDC Los Angeles. It's like a cookie cutter of the MDC in New York. So yeah, I do know. But he's sitting in the shoe. He's in the hole. And this guy is going through loneliness, anxiety, desperation. He's on super watch, and they hand out like psych meds, like they're M&Ms to these inmates to try to get them to cope with what's going on. So his entire existence is to sit in this little cell, essentially. He can shower 3 times a week. He's not getting any real visits. If his lawyer does a legal visit, they have to come upstairs into the special housing unit to see him. Now, have you seen these reports about all these commissary items? They say that he could buy any of those.
What was one of them? Steak or something?
Ribeye, steak,
Yeah.
all kinds of nonsense. He's in the shoe, people. He's in a special housing unit. He cannot buy things off the regular commissary list.
As a last-ditch effort, Diddy allegedly faked a medical issue to get out of the MDC. On February 2nd, he was taken to a Brooklyn hospital for an MRI in the middle of the night. This raises questions: who approved his release? And is Diddy still pulling strings even from behind bars?
Why does he get the cover of darkness? Why does he get taken out because he needs an aspirin? Help me, Dr. Hendricks.
Well, I'll tell you, each inmate gets a physical within 14 days of their arrival at any facility. And I'm sure, based on reports of him having several knee surgeries throughout the years after being a marathoner back in 2003, so this may have been in the works in terms of getting him out for an MRI, because I know that they don't have that equipment at the institution. And I'll just tell you this, they probably had set this appointment up months, maybe weeks ago, and they set it up for the evening.
To leave at 1 a.m. in the cover of darkness? Okay, you think that's what they set up, Hendricks? Look, I know you're being loyal to MDC, but can we get real? Leaving MDC because your knee hurts? Have you seen that POC?
Diddy's empire is collapsing, and his legal troubles are only getting worse. With his lawyers stepping down, insiders turning against him, and prosecutors uncovering more evidence, his future looks grim. But what do you think? Is this really the end for Diddy, or will he somehow manage to evade justice? Share your thoughts in the comments.